The upscale restaurant buzzed with conversation as Olivia Shun smoothed down her burgundy dress, borrowed from her roommate, and tried to look like she belonged. At 29, she was a social worker, making barely enough to cover her tiny apartment and student loans. But tonight she was pretending to be someone else entirely. Her well-meaning friend had set up the blind date, insisting the man was perfect for use, successful, kind, looking for something real. What her friend had failed to mention was that he was a millionaire CEO who frequented restaurants where appetizers cost more than Olivia's weekly grocery budget. So, Olivia had borrowed a dress, claimed to work in consulting, and was desperately hoping she could pull off one evening of pretending to be someone who belonged in this world. She spotted him, immediately tall, handsome, maybe mid-30s, dressed casually but expensively in a white linen shirt. He was accompanied by a little girl, maybe 6 years old, in a pink dress, who held his hand. "Olivia?" he asked, approaching with a warm smile. "I am Nathan. This is my daughter Lily. I hope you do not mind my babysitter cancelled last minute." "Of course not," Olivia said, genuinely relieved. A child's presence would make this easier. Less pressure to maintain her facade. They settled at the table, and Lily immediately started chattering. "Daddy says you work in consulting. What is consulting? Is it like teaching? My teacher is Ms. Rodriguez, and she is very nice." It is. Olivia paused, unsure how to explain the vague lie she had told. "It is helping people solve problems in their businesses." Nathan watched her with an expression she could not quite read. Throughout dinner, Olivia tried to maintain her performance, ordering moderately priced items, while Nathan and Lily got whatever they wanted, making vague references to her corporate work, laughing at the right moments. But she noticed Nathan kept glancing down. Finally, she realized what he was looking at: her shoes. The worn flats that did not match her borrowed dress, with scuffed toes and heels that had clearly seen years of use. She had forgotten about the shoes, focused so much on the dress that she had not thought about what she wore on her feet. Olivia felt her face flush with embarrassment and shame. He knew. This wealthy man, in his expensive casual wear, had spotted the one thing that gave away her deception. "Excuse me," Olivia said quietly. "I need to use the restroom." In the bathroom, she stared at herself in the mirror, fighting tears. What was she doing? Pretending to be someone she was not, lying to this kind man and his sweet daughter, all because she was ashamed of being a struggling social worker instead of a successful businesswoman. She should just leave, walk out, send a text, apologizing, and end this humiliating charade. But when she returned to the table, Nathan was waiting with a gentle expression. Lily was coloring on her kids' menu. "Can we talk honestly for a moment?" Nathan asked quietly. Olivia's heart sank. "I know. The shoes gave it away. I am sorry for lying. I do not actually work in consulting. I am a social worker. I make $38,000 a year, and I borrowed this dress because I could not afford anything nice enough for a restaurant like this. I should not have pretended to be someone I am not." She expected anger or disappointment. Instead, Nathan smiled a genuine, warm smile. "I know you are not in consulting. I figured that out in the first 10 minutes. You are terrible at lying. By the way you kept hesitating, and your corporate examples were clearly pulled from TV shows." He leaned forward. "But I did not say anything because I wanted to understand why you felt you needed to lie. Because my friend told me you were successful and I was embarrassed that I am not," Olivia admitted. "Because I assumed someone like you would want someone equally successful. Not someone who wears worn-out shoes to nice restaurants." Nathan was quiet for a moment, Can I tell you what I actually noticed tonight? Not the shoes, though. Yes, I did see them. I noticed that you knelt down to Lily's level when you first met her, instead of just looking down at her. I noticed that when she spilled water, you helped clean it up without making her feel bad. I noticed that you asked her about school and actually listened to her answers, instead of just being polite," he continued. "And when you said you work in consulting, I asked follow-up questions, and you got so uncomfortable that I knew you were hiding something. So I did what any curious person would do. I searched your name on social media, found out you are a social worker at Family Services, that you have been nominated twice for awards for your work with at-risk youth, and that you volunteer at a homeless shelter on weekends." Olivia stared at him. You knew this whole time. Knew, and I let you keep up the pretense, because I wanted to see how long you would maintain it. I am sorry for that. It was a bit manipulative, but I needed to know if you would eventually be honest. "Why does it matter?" Olivia asked. "Because I have dated a lot of women who pretended to be someone they are not, but in the opposite direction. They pretended to love children when they actually resented Lily's presence. They pretended to value meaningful work when they actually only cared about status and wealth. You pretended to be corporate and successful when you actually do work that matters more than anything I have ever done." Nathan looked at her seriously. "I do not need someone who works in consulting. I need someone who sees my daughter as a person, not an obstacle. Someone who does meaningful work, even when it does not pay well. Someone who is honest, even when honesty is embarrassing. You are all of those things, Olivia. The worn shoes just prove you spend your money on rent and student loans instead of designer footwear. That is nothing to be ashamed of." Olivia felt tears streak down her face. "I was so embarrassed. I thought you would think I was not good enough. You are a social worker who helps vulnerable families. You volunteer at homeless shelters. You borrowed a dress because you wanted to make a good impression, even though you could not afford one. You are exactly good enough. Better than good enough. You are extraordinary." Lily looked up from her coloring. "Daddy, why is she crying? Did we make her sad?" "No, sweetheart," Olivia said, wiping her eyes. "Your daddy said something very kind, and it made me happy cry. Oh, good. Because I like you. You are nice to me, and you do not talk to daddy like you are trying too hard." Lily went back to coloring with perfect child logic. Over the following months, Olivia and Nathan built a relationship based on honesty. Nathan insisted on taking Olivia shopping for clothes she actually liked and could afford, not designer items, but quality pieces she felt comfortable in. Olivia introduced Nathan to her worlds, the families she worked with, the shelter where she volunteered, the reality of what poverty looked like. "You changed my perspective," Nathan told her 6 months after that first date. "I was donating to charities but never actually seeing the impact. You showed me the people behind the statistics. You made me understand that my wealth has purpose beyond accumulation, can actually change lives if directed thoughtfully." "You changed me too," Olivia said. "I was ashamed of my work because it does not pay well. You taught me that the value of work is not its salary, but its impact. You made me proud of what I do instead of embarrassed by what I earn." 1 year after Olivia had worn borrowed clothes and scuffed shoes to a blind date, Nathan proposed not at an expensive restaurant, but at the homeless shelter where she volunteered, surrounded by the families she served. "You wore worn shoes on our first date," Nathan said, kneeling with the ring as Lily bounced excitedly beside him. "You were ashamed of them. I saw them and thought they were the most beautiful shoes I had ever seen, Because they told me you prioritized helping others over impressing people. Olivia, will you marry me? Will you let me spend my life supporting the work you do? Will you teach Lily and me that true wealth is measured in lives changed, not dollars earned? Through tears, Olivia said yes. But only if you promise to always remember those shoes. To never let me forget that being honest about who I am is more important than pretending to be who I think others want. I promise, Nathan said. How could I forget? The worn shoes told me everything I needed to know about your character. They showed me you were real. At their wedding, surrounded by colleagues from both the corporate and non-profit worlds, Olivia kept her speech simple. I wore scuffed shoes on our blind date because I had spent my money on rent instead of fashion. I was ashamed. My husband saw those shoes and saw someone with her priorities straight. Thank you, Nathan, for valuing the real me over the version I thought you wanted. Thank you for teaching me that worn shoes can be beautiful if they have walked meaningful paths. If this story reminded you that authenticity matters more than appearances, please like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment about when being yourself turned out to be exactly enough.